Good morning. Let's call this meeting to order then. We've established a quorum and we're calling the meeting to order at 10:02 a.m. So we will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone can rise, and I'm going to have Rose go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to hand it over to the clerk for roll call.
President Morales,
Present.
Vice President Estrada,
Here.
Secretary Singh,
Here.
Treasurer Kelly, Director Aguilar,
Here.
Director Perez, Director Gutierrez, Director Murillo,
Here.
ex officio Joe Shea.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any changes to the agenda? None? All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
Motion to approve.
All right. We have a motion. Need a second? Got a second? Do I need to do a roll call on that or just all in favor?
I think you have to do a roll call.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
President Morales,
Yes.
Vice President Estrada,
Yes.
Secretary Singh,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Perez, Director Murillo.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Perfect. Thank you. Public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Not at this time.
Perfect. All right. We'll move on to board member comments. Do we have any comments from any board members?
No, sir.
Listen, I'm a zipper. So if you ain't got a comment, we're moving on to the next. All right. So on items for discussion and board action, the first thing we have is the consent calendar. Does anyone want to pull anything from the consent calendar? If not, I need a motion to approve.
Move approval.
All right. I have a motion
Second.
and a second.
President Morales,
Yes.
Vice President Estrada,
Yes.
Secretary Singh,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Perez, Director Murillo.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Perfect. All right. The first thing we have on the agenda is Aaron King, SoCal Area Manager, Lower Colorado Region, USBR intro and remarks.
Mr. President, we have had a long history working with the Bureau. And Director Estrada and I have seen several Bureau representatives come and go through time as they do, starting with Ms. Predova, who was living in Indio Hills. Then we had Ms. Genevieve Johnson, who I think shared time between Denver and Boulder City, and then Jeremy Brooks out of Boulder City. Now we have Mr. Aaron King, who is joining us, who, as a result of the reorganization in the Trump administration, is now working out of the Temecula office. I thought it'd be good for him to come in and say hi, introduce himself, and have the board ask questions.
Perfect. The floor is yours.
Would have been here a few minutes earlier, but got caught on a train in Beaumont. As you mentioned, the reorganization, so the Salton Sea responsibilities now fall within my purview. I'm the area manager for Southern California for reclamation. I'm attached to the Boulder City office. Our office primarily operates on grants and agreements with Southern California tribes, and then also the municipalities largely associated with Metropolitan Water District, San Diego County Water Authority. So this area, we kind of get into the Yuma area office. Borderlands for my office is where we kind of get gray. So it made sense to attach this to my office, given the change with Jeremy Brooks moving on, as Patrick mentioned. So I don't have any big agency updates. I'm sure you're all aware of the massive efforts going on around post 26 planning and operations and looking at issuing a record of decision soon. You all see all that in the news, so I'm not gonna tell you things you already know. So that's the short of it. So yeah, if any of you all have questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. And also I'll stick around for a little bit when the meeting wraps up if anybody just wants to have an informal one-on-one.
All right, Director Aguilar.
Yeah, thank you. Good that you're here and good to see you.
Likewise.
I'm just curious about I know there were some negotiations about that $1 million set aside that was carved out for the water district, but we were talking about maybe transferring that money. Somehow that didn't work out. So what's the status of that?
So that's still worked with Coachella Valley Water District. That's
Mhm.
at review of the Assistant Secretary's office. So all the paperwork's in place. It's at a review. And you're going to hear that probably with a lot of grants and agreements with the federal government right now. It's that same. So that's why kind of this effort didn't work. We were all the way at that point. And then when I saw the messages from Ms. Rodad and Ms. Bravada, we were already had that document pretty much lined up.
Okay.
So, and it's just been kind of sitting in that step, to be honest with you. I bump them every couple of weeks, but that's where we're hoping to hear this week even about, this week's almost over, but we're hoping to hear the status of that. I'd heard that it was one hurdle away.
Good.
Was the last
Good.
I heard a week and a half.
Thank you for your help.
Well, I look forward to working with Mr. King on other opportunities to address our funding requirements for the work of the authority.
Yeah, I have
Go
some
ahead.
comments. Yeah, it's same. Thank you for being here. And I echo Mr. O'Dowd's comments about looking forward to working with you to explore funding opportunities. I hear there's money out there with the what do we call it? The inflation, the IRA. I think there's still some money there, and I hear it because there's talk about conserving more water, making some of that money available to extend some of the conservation efforts, and be able to pay the districts for some of that. And so, with that in mind, I think sometimes here at the Salton Sea Authority, what we think about is essentially water supply to the sea, and to the extent that there's that need, how is that being incorporated in the totality of all the conversations? So I, looking forward to talking about that, seeing if there's monies available for that. And then I just wanted to get a sense if, I'm happy that you're here and all that. That's, I don't think we've, I guess what I wanted to ask is your expectation that you would join us here every so often?
I do think the geography of where I live.
Yeah,
obviously,
that's
I think
why I
part of
asked.
what historically that has been part of the issue was coming from the Vegas area can be quite a
Mhm.
trip to get here for a 1 or a 2 hour meeting. Whereas where I live, especially when you're on this end, I can get here in the morning, and so my expectation would be, especially if we had something pertinent.
Yeah.
But definitely, I can be fairly regular.
Yeah, looking forward to working together, establishing a relationship and kind of getting on the same page. And so thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
All right, does any other board member have any questions or comments for Mr. King?
All right.
If not, thank you.
Like I
Listen,
say, I'll stick around. So if anybody wants to chat afterwards,
Look-
but by all means, chat.
don't give us ammunition, just go sit down. We're good, right? All right, next up on the agenda, we have Imogen Lee from UCLA Water Quality Research and Grant Request.
So working on the feasibility study with the Corps of Engineers, one of the issues that is constantly discussed is how water quality is addressed in the project development. And it's still largely unresolved, and we're working with them and working with our delegation in DC to give the Corps the authorities to make sure that it's responsibly addressed. We were approached a few weeks ago by Ms. Lee from UCLA. She's a researcher there, along with her mentor, about partnering in securing grant funding for research that they're doing in this space. And I thought it would be useful, because of the open question, to have her spend a couple of minutes sharing about her work. And then I would just ask the board to ratify the letter that's in the board packet, which ostensibly says that we will in a non-financial way, unless this board determines at a future date otherwise. That way we work with her in developing her project and pursuing its completion. So Ms. Lee, if you'd like to come online, she's also with us remotely today. I believe she's in Taiwan, but she can tell us a little bit about that. Ms. Lee, if you'd like to share your screen, come online and join us, that would be great. And you are muted. And now you're unmuted.
Are you able to see the full screen?
Yes, but you're not in presenter mode.
Uh,
You could work from, that's it.
okay.
Nope, other one. You can go with that.
Hello everyone. Hello board member. Thank you for inviting me to share a talk with you about our hope to contribute our capacity in helping the Salton Sea restoration agenda. We'd like to introduce ourselves first. We are a research team at UCLA Civil Environmental Engineering Department, and this map shows the sampling sites from which we compile data sets for nutrients and selenium along the two rivers from 2002 to 2019. And then the data is further analyzed using 3D graphical analysis, so that 18 years worth of spatial and temporal trend for each pollutant can be assessed in a glance. And for my PhD dissertation, I use a numerical 3D hydrodynamics plus water quality modeling to simulate long-term salinity and water quality impacts of 3 types of mitigation strategies. The first one is nature-based solution, which is building an emerged island in the South Basin, so you can see from the top graph. And the second is seawater import-export scenario. And then the third one is the most robust scenario of seawater import-export scenario in addition to tributary treatment. And I'd like to move on to the current topic of long-range plan for Salton Sea restoration. We all know that they're currently doing the feasibility study where they have various four criteria to assess each concept. And I'd like to point out that for the water quality criteria, currently every concept is scored the same score of 3, which mean the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers currently is incapable to evaluate the water quality component of each concept. That made it impossible to distinguish which concept reduce nutrient best, manage selenium risk best, or avoids low oxygen best. The current concept under consideration can be divided into 3 categories shown here. The main one, concept 2, 3, 5 are concepts with variation in how water is stored, divided, or moved through basin, perimeter, lakes, or channels. The other category is water treatment through the use of wetlands or recycling. And the last one is adding or exchanging water with another source. These distinct features are important in determining which type of models used to evaluate them and which questions they're invited decision makers to ask, which I will explain later. Here, I will explain the process of how we propose to select the finalist concept. First, a common test. Every concept, regardless of type, faces identical climate, inflow, evaporation, and water quality condition over the same planning horizon. This ensures differences in result reflect the concept itself, not variation in the test. Then each concept family, as I explained earlier in the last slide, is analyzed with the tools that represent how it actually works. For example, hydrodynamic model for basin and routing concept, biogeochemical models for treatment and wetland concept, operation models for supply and exchange concept. This prevents under modeling where critical processes are missed and over modeling where unnecessary complexity is added. Then all the concepts are scored on the same broad level metrics. For example, water demand, reliability, salinity, dissolved oxygen is shown here. Then the promising concepts are run through difficult futures. These include prolonged drought, intense storm events, reduced inflow to identify which are resilient and which are fragile. Then for the concept that remain viable, more intensive analysis is conducted using 3D hydrodynamic / water quality model like the one that I used in my PhD for additional scrutiny and detailed analysis for the finalist concepts. Then finally, the deliverable will include scorecards for each finalist, a side-by-side comparison dashboard, and a clear statement of recommendation with proposed next step. The ACH operational data fed into the machine learning forecast that predicts the amount of and quality water leaving this species conservation habitat under various operating scenarios. And this forecast serves as an input in stage 1 here and stage 2 for concepts that are physically connected to SCH. Lastly, this is a 2-year schedule broken into 4 phases with board decision at each gate. During setup, we lock in the data, scenarios, and metrics, and the board approve them. Then we go on to screening stage. We produce the first scorecard, and then the board picks which concept go further. We then run the selected concept through difficult future scenarios and identify what we still need to know. Then finally, the board select the finalist. Then we build detailed models for the finalists and refine the results. Finally, we deliver the scorecards, dashboards, maps, and recommendation. And then from those, the board can decide which concept they would like to invest. This is the example of outcome for the evaluation results. This table turns the technical evaluation into a decision-ready summary. It lines up all the concepts side by side and score each one on the exact question that you might ask. For example, how much water does it need? Will it work during drought? What habitat does control benefit? Does it deliver? What could go wrong? How sure are we? Note that this is not a ranking of favorite. It is a map of risk and trade-off. For example, the perimeter lake concept 3 is the only concept with a clean green light. The treatment ideas are viable but narrow. The large-scale water import and exchange ideas are promising but unproven. The board should not commit to them until supply and legal uncertainty are resolved. But then again, this is a hypothetical scenario example. The dashboard gives the board a rational basis for deciding what to advance now and what to study further and what to set aside. Lastly, this graph explains a pipeline that moves from live intelligence to board decision to coordinated action. At a species conservation habitat, we're essentially building a forecasting engine. It will ingest real-time operation, river flows, weather, and hydrologic data, then use machine learning to predict water quality and habitat condition, and offer early warning capacity as well as anomaly detection. Then for the concept that take into account the SCH implementation, the forecast feed directly into the evaluation framework. Then as I explained earlier, every restored concept is screened, modeled, and scored against the same board level metrics to answer which concepts actually meet the goals and what are the real trade-offs. Lastly, the system converts these technical results into coordinated action. This means partners are working from the same data, investments are stress tested before funds are committed, and the board receive a decision package it can explain and defend. This includes my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Upton has a question.
All right, go ahead.
Hello, Ms. Lee. Thank you for your presentation and thank you for the work that you've done. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Great. In your quick analysis, you included several concepts that fed into the long-range plan that went to the Army Corps, but that were eliminated by the Army Corps without any water quality analysis. Are you suggesting that, and they basically limited their consideration to treatment wetlands possibly, and to a couple of in-sea concepts of rerouting water that's already coming into the Salton Sea. So are you proposing that some of these concepts that were eliminated from consideration by the Army Corps without looking at water quality should still be evaluated for the water quality impacts?
I read the report. I understand that the concept 235 where various configuration of basin perimeter lake are more favored, and then the treatment component are considered for support features that can aid to the basin concept. And so that is, I am not suggesting what you said.
If I could, if Ms. Lee, if I could
Mhm.
jump in, I think what I heard you say is what you were presenting was examples and not representative of any research that you did in this area. One way or the other was illustrative and not demonstrative, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this framework will work for however concepts they have left. And they still have this SCH habitats, which still have the sedimentation basin for certain level of water treatment capacity.
Will your analysis look at the possibility that we may face of extreme water cutbacks, such as we've seen last year and this year, if that same high level of water reductions and reductions in inflow to the sea, or potentially even higher than that, because the Colorado River situation is critical? Are you looking, and will you be looking at the impacts of very severe reductions in inflow and how that will impact the water quality in the Salton Sea?
This is Mike Stenstrom. I was her professor and have participated in all of these analyses. We did several, and that's one of the things that concerns me the most is the critical status of the Colorado River and the potential for reductions of lots of flows to California recipients. And so reduction of the New River and the Alamo River and how it would affect the Salton Sea and any of the wetlands that are being created is a concern of mine, and I think that's one of the main things we can investigate in this modeling effort is to turn up and down the return flows and see what kind of impact they have.
Thank you. That would be absolutely critical because we are looking at substantial risk of severe reductions in inflow to the Salton Sea in the coming years.
I agree completely with you.
Any other questions?
Hey, this is a
Mm-hmm.
little loud. This is Joe Shea from the state. Miss Lee and Professor Stenstrom, just wanted to thank you for the work that you're doing. I know you're in touch with our Department of Water Resources team and coordinating with them. So my hope is that this proposal continues to be refined and advanced and funded. And I think it would also be helpful for us to continue to follow your updates on this so that we can also keep the Army Corps team apprised to the extent you're, conducting analysis that would help inform where they are at in their feasibility study process. So thank you again for your great work.
Thank you for your consideration.
So, and I
Thank you.
wanted
We
to
actually-
mention, go ahead, Ms. Lee.
Oh, I just wanted to mention, we actually just submitted for the Water Smart grant for applied science from Bureau of Reclamation. Remember, Bureau of Reclamation.
And we
Sure.
just happen to have a Bureau representative here today. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
Supervisor Perez?
Let me just state out loud, I think it's important. I don't think we've ever been in this type of situation in the past where now we have a level of university efforts taking place while we also have the Army Corps of Engineers. And now we have a conservancy alongside the Salton Sea Authority, alongside the grassroots organizations that have been engaging now for quite some time. For all the reasons that were already discussed as to what the concerns are. Right now, your efforts, those of you that are from Santa Barbara, let's say, or USBR or UCLA or what have you, your work is critical. Your efforts are the most important efforts I see right now in order for us to overcome the real challenges that we face and that are coming. And they're not gonna stop. But I'm hoping that now we have more momentum than ever before. I feel that. But we're able to try to figure things out in a way in which we get somewhere soon, within our lifetime. Some sort of timeline in which I'm able to see it. Doesn't have to be too big, but something. Especially for the residents of the North Shore area. Especially for the residents in the, let's say, area around Raleigh or Nyland and Imperial County. Those folks have had to struggle and they continue to struggle. So that's the reason why I think ultimately at the end of the day, this conversation is an important one. And I look forward to your work, but we have to push. We're gonna have to push. We have to advocate. You have to do your research, bring that forward, educate people. And let's advance this work not only here regionally, but as well at the state level and quite frankly, at the federal level. Thank you.
I thank you for that, Supervisor Perez, because that's what we and we'll discuss this more when we review the framework. But research is critical to answering questions, and prioritizing that research is going to be equally important just because of the limited resources. We brought this forward after we worked together with DWR, getting an understanding, and they said, this information is going to be necessary to inform projects going forward. And we don't know everything about what they're doing, but I think it's going to be helpful. It's a relatively low profile, cost-effective conversation that we can have that begins this discussion in this important area. But I also wanted to notice that Executive Officer Michael Placentia is in the audience with us with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And perhaps he might want to participate in this conversation also with respect to water quality and make sure that this study is done in an appropriate and effective and useful manner.
I think if he decides to, that'd be great. But I think you mentioned something right now that's very important that we should consider here as an authority. You mentioned that we have all these entities that are playing ball and we don't know maybe potentially what they're all doing. However, we know that they're moving in the right direction. So what if we had some sort of organized effort where we're able to bring all these pieces of the puzzle together and have a real conversation, an open dialogue as to what people are doing, put it on paper, put it on the wall, what are the gaps, how we're measuring success, how far we've come. It'd be great. I'd like to see like a Salton Sea. What is it going to look like in a year? What's it going to look like in 5? What's it going to look like in 10? And we're bringing a symposium again of everybody that we have been bringing in, and folks that potentially have not shown up yet. Just gonna put that out there. I don't know. I'm just.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, concerns about the UCLA study? If not, I'm entertaining a motion to approve moving forward with it.
So move.
All right, motion made by Supervisor, second by Director Estrada.
President Morales,
Yes.
Vice President Estrada, Secretary Singh,
Yes.
Director Aguilar.
Yes.
Director Perez,
Yes.
Director Murillo. Yep. Motion passed.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, UCLA. Greatly appreciate it. The next
Okay, well,
item.
thank all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, go Bruins.
Go for it.
The next one that we have on the agenda is we talked about it a little bit at the last meeting. I just didn't want us to have any action on it at the last meeting because we were still waiting to hear back from Department of Interior's for the resolution for a consultation request from Torres Martinez, because we want to consult with them on Colorado River water. But they still haven't responded to my request for consultation, which is par from the course. Is whenever I try to get a hold of any federal people for tribal stuff, it happens. But so I don't want to prolong it again though. So if we are interested in having Salton Sea Authority help us with that consultation so we can move forward with it, we did attach the resolution in there today. I am gonna send another letter to DOI to see where we're at with that consultation, because I actually have to get a consultation for something else from them. So I'm just gonna tag along and say, hey, don't forget this one I sent, and see if I get a response.
Mr. Chair, just very quickly, can you remind us your request on consultation, what that actually means?
Yeah, we're requesting a nation-to-nation consultation about the Colorado River water of what's going on with the EIS. We want them to meet with us and figure out what our concerns are and actually document them as a government to government consultation, and not just a checked box on a page.
Yeah. Thank you.
So working with the tribe, every member of the authority and others submitted comments on the post-26 operating guidelines, ostensibly saying you really can't implement the guidelines without assessing the impacts to the Salton Sea in one form or another. That came either by each individual member's agency or with respect to the tribe and Riverside County through the authorities letter. The tribe, because of their unique position, because of the specific laws that deal with their relationship with the federal government and the Salton Sea, should have been consulted before the draft EIS was even issued, but they weren't. And, those things happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the tribe issued a request for consultation and outlined a number of things in their request that they wanted to see. And whether this would happen now, I think that the spirit in which I would like the authority to approve this resolution is not confrontational, but simply in support of what the tribe is doing, because of the tribe's unique position, I think their efforts will benefit everybody. And in fact, what I did, and I distributed to the counties as draft resolutions that they might also consider to support the tribe's effort, because we're all one community here. And I think that the issues with respect to the Salton Sea affect all of us. So starting with the tribe's request for consultation, the issue of a resolution from this board, followed up by letters from the agricultural community and others, recognizing that we're all together unified in representing, as we long have, that we believe that there are solutions to these challenges, but they can't be ignored. And we have to have those conversations. So with that introduction background, I turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
So I'm entertaining approving the resolution so that the Salton Sea Authority can work with us on the consultation with Department of Interior.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All right, motion made by Supervisor Perez, seconded by Board Member Estrada.
President Morales,
Yes.
Vice President Estrada,
Yes.
Secretary Singh,
Yes.
Treasurer Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Perez,
Yes.
Director Mario,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you, everyone. So we'll send out another, like I said, I gotta send them a letter for a different consultation. So I'm gonna tag onto that letter saying, don't forget, and then we'll go from there. The next thing on the agenda we have is E, the strategic plan implementation.
And under that, Mr. President, we have two items to consider. The first is the framework of assurance. Kind of honestly, a goofy name, but I think it's an important concept that we explore. It arose out of the supplemental EIS and conversations that were taking place early in 2002, where we learned of conservation measures that were going to be implemented, but the impacts weren't going to be assessed. So we started working with our state and federal partners to develop some form of accountability so that we understood what those impacts might be and how they were going to be mitigated. They ended up issuing a finding of no significant impact for those interim measures. I suspect that because of the speed at which the Colorado River post-26 operating guidelines are moving forward, we're not going to likely get a comprehensive environmental assessment of what the future impacts of the post-26 operations will be. But this framework, we believe, draws on 3 years of conversations of this board. It draws on our strategic plan, which was recently approved. And so I want to just walk through it and share with you what it intends to accomplish. I think it's consistent with Supervisor Perez's earlier comments. I can get this too. Okay. So the board did adopt direction with a foundational priority of governance in the strategic plan, which says to strengthen the authority's governance structure to provide clarity of roles, accountability, and decision-making authority across member agencies and partners. Effective governance is the prerequisite of all other strategic work, enabling the authority to carry out its mission and vision. And the mission-driven objective within the plan is to promote agency alignment around a shared framework of assurance. It's specific in the strategic plan that places public health, environmental restoration, and accountability at the forefront of all actions. And what we're here today for is to adopt this framework of assurance and advance its implementation, which will take time and resources. But once we adopt it, we will begin the process working with our state and federal partners to clarify it, resource it, and implement it. Government measures activity, but the public experiences conditions. What the government measures is acres, dollars, projects, reports, and meetings. That's how they keep score. But what the public experiences air quality, public health, water quality, habitat, and community confidence. So the government performs activities and the public lives with the results. But the unanswered question is, how do we know whether government activity is producing an acceptable and sustainable condition? The framework of assurance provides a consistent way, we think, to answer that question. It's simple. Framework says, is the public condition acceptable? And it says, if it is acceptable, if it's not acceptable, that has to be it. If it's acceptable, can it be sustained? And if it's can't be sustained, if not, what will it take to achieve and sustain it? And who is the whole of government organized to make that happen? And I define public condition as the condition government has undertaken to achieve, maintain, or protect through an essential governmental function. What the framework does and doesn't do, it evaluates whether the whole of government is organized to achieve and sustain an acceptable public condition. It identifies gaps in responsibility, authority, resources, measurement, and accountability. It supports better coordination among public agencies. But what it doesn't do is transfer authority, reassign responsibility, or create another government agency. The framework does not change who is responsible. It helps ensure the responsibilities are clearly defined, adequately supported, effectively coordinated, and transparently accountable. So what I'm asking today is that this board adopt the framework as the authority's governance framework. Direct staff to apply the framework in evaluating future programs, partnerships, and institutional relationships. And direct staff to return with implementation and recommendation through agreements, legislation, and policy. So that, in essence, is the framework. And I think that I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any board member questions?
Bring it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment.
right.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
So
Aguilar.
is it not correct that, as you mentioned in the staff report, that this framework of assurance was already included in the strategic action plan that was adopted, but this is just an expansion?
This is the strategic plan directed the creation of this framework.
Right.
So
this is not
the
first
framework
release.
has evolved. It actually started at our 30th anniversary. You may recall I did a presentation on a health assurance plan, or what I called a health assurance plan for people like you, and I called it the happy plan. but it was a tongue-in-cheek reaction to a long-standing concern of, we have been dealing with this stuff for decades and we don't know the answer to it. And we have a right to know the answer. So we've been working through, how do we get that? And we ultimately came to the place where we have public agencies like Mr. Placentius, who have specific responsibilities with respect to the Salton Sea. And they're capable, competent, professional public organizations that have those responsibilities. We just need to undergird them, support them, make sure that they have the resources they need specific to the changes that are taking place at the Salton Sea, and then report back to us in the community writ large that everything's taken care of. I'm of the mind that if every public agency who has responsibility for public health at and around the sea had the resources and programs to address the concerns around the sea, people would feel a lot more confident about doing things, investing, and otherwise. And I think Owens Lake is a great example of that. It's a simplified microcosm of what we're dealing with, except they only have the Great Basin Unified Air Pollution Control District, which is a pretty long name until I saw Mr. Placentius' organization has an even longer name. But by having that one institution share with people that they have satellite images every 5 days, they have 200, they have a air quality monitor every square mile, they have monitoring and information systems, that gives people confidence that the people in charge have the resources they need, are doing their job, and they can go on about doing other things. We have so much information. We've been doing studies forever, but what we don't have is that consistent, harmonious thread. The authorities can't do all of that. What we can do is we can collaborate with all of those agencies with proper resources. And that's where this leads to, is with the proper resources, we can work with the state, work with the federal government, work with the agencies, work with the local stakeholders who are doing testing to make sure that this stuff is consistently codified, analyzed, and projected to the people who are concerned about it.
Well, I just, and amen to all of that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really important to, when you come back with an implementation plan, that it include what you've mentioned here, but also potential funding and financing sources.
So they have to be dual track. You know, the next item that we'll take up is an MOU, which in part, and you know, all credit to Assistant Secretary Shea. He's been a great champion of the community and a supporter of our work and collaboration. And it's not a lot of money, but there is a little money in the state budget for the authority now, and it's the pebble in the pond. You know, we need to just keep working this system so that we're building responsibilities and assignments and duties, so there's not duplication, there's efficiency, and things are getting done in a way that people outside of this organization and in the community know that progress is being made.
Yeah, I think this is a great task. It's a huge, I think it's maybe a heavy lift.
It's aspirational.
But I think it's a good
Jump off.
And you're right. We've talked here for a long time about a lot of people doing a lot of different things and not being maybe in one location. I think at least the way I understood this framework, that's what it's trying to address. It's trying to bring people to the same table so that everybody kind of learns and feeds off of what everybody else is working on, whether it might be what we just heard about right now, the research, and we know other folks are doing other things. I know that at one point we were trying to understand if some of the dust emissions were related to respiratory health concerns, and we were thinking that maybe we needed to work with South Coast AQMD and some of the other air pollution districts in Imperial County. And I think there was some effort to try to do that. I don't know how far we got, but I feel like all of that is part of what we're trying to do here. And on top of, I think what the direction was from Director Aguilar about trying to identify potential funding sources is I think we also need to have a list of potential partners and who is going to be part of this framework, whether that's obviously South Coast AQMD, the Imperial districts, pollution districts, air pollution districts in Imperial, and maybe educational institutions. Because I imagine that if eventually you put some type of MOU that is tied to some type of funding, it's the public agencies that have the funding, right? It's going to be similar to what we have with the Salton Sea Authority, where the participating agencies are contributing some financial resources. I imagine that if we partner up with AQMD or other public agencies, they have the budget. And so, I like it. And I just, I think it's good that you want to work on this. And I know we've talked about it for a long time, and I support it. Thank you.
And like Director Aguilar said, it was in the strategic plan, because I remember that was one of the future goals, was figuring out the ad hoc committee, who was going to get with all these groups, how are we going to get everyone together. So at least this is a starting point for us to figure out how that work's gonna happen.
So do we actually have an ad hoc committee that's thinking about that already? In other words, how soon can we get the ball rolling and put together a summit?
Well, I've been talking to all, I can't say all, the broad spectrum of public agency leadership about this issue and working together. What I don't know is what I don't know. And I think that my first effort would be to convene a meeting of senior representatives from all of the public agencies who are involved in this space specific to the Salton Sea, and say who is not in the room, who should be in the room. One example I would give would be vector control.
Yeah.
I never thought of including vector control in this conversation, but the truth is, as the sea changes, it affects that work. And there's a difference between the vector control in Imperial County and the vector control in Riverside County. And they do some collaboration, but they're two completely different entities. And where I see this as important is the public agencies that are doing work with respect to the Salton Sea are doing what they're doing as part of their overall business plan. And they're funding it out of their overall general budget. And my concern as a resident and a taxpayer is that the impacts that they are researching are the result of programs put in place for the benefit of other people. So Great Basin Unified Air Pollution Control District gets $6 million a year from LADWP just to oversee their implementation of their program. I think that if each agency had a clearly defined, reasonable, responsible, not gold-plated plan for addressing impacts at the sea and a budget associated with that, at least we would have something to advocate for.
So less is more for me, Patrick. I hear you.
The short
question
answer
is,
no.
my question is, how soon can we actually get this ball rolling? That's all I want to know.
I think
Like in a month,
I think within
2-3 months.
I can't imagine that within 90 days, it's summertime in the desert, but I can't imagine that within 90 days, I can't pull together that initial gathering.
No, yeah, I'm not asking for you to do that either. I think it's going to require a couple of folks from here to start thinking it
I think
through.
you can help.
Yeah, that's fine. But I do feel your first point is a good point, well taken. We don't need to get into all the minutia of all that, not right now, because we know we're going to get into it later. My point is that we just need to make sure we start getting into that.
Yeah. If we approve this,
I'm
we
all
just gotta
in.
start. All right, any other questions or concerns? If not, I'm entertaining a motion to approve the assurance framework so we can move forward.
Make a motion.
All right, motion by Director Estrada,
Second,
second by Director Aguilar. Yes.
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 Yep.
Thank you. All right, that was approved. The next thing on the agenda, we have the Salton Sea Conservancy Executive Manager recruitment.
No, we do have one item under that.
Oh, yeah,
Unless,
DOI, sorry.
unless you want to amend the motion and include there is a draft term sheet for a memorandum of understanding, which I did not want to present until we passed the framework. But the memorandum of understanding it follows a memorandum of a current memorandum of MOU. How about that?
Yeah.
From between CNRA and the Department of Interior. There has historically been an MOU between the Department of Interior and the authority, but that ran its term in 2024. There's also an MOU between CNRA and the authority. And the CNRA Department of Interior MOU expires in September. So our thought was, with all of these current activities, Colorado River feasibility study, all the things that we just talked about with the framework, if we could intelligently transcribe responsibilities in that MOU, including the authority, which has been a party to these agreements in the past, then I think that would clarify. So what I'm asking the board is, there is a draft of a term sheet for discussion purposes with CNRA and the Department of Interior, which we frankly intend to use. We are scheduling a meeting with the Department of Interior, hopefully next week, that we intend to use as part of our discussion with them. And our conversation with CNRA is continuous and nonstop. So once the board provides direction in this regard, we'll take that and see what it evolves into. The Conservancy obviously will be part of that conversation because it's part of CNRA's sphere. So it would also fall into creating efficiency so we're avoiding duplication. That's kind of the thrust.
Make a motion to approve.
All right, got a motion to approve the MOU. Oh, got a second. Beat you to it, Supervisor. All right,
Pres-
roll call vote.
President Morales,
Yes.
Vice President Estrada.
Yes.
Secretary Sims.
Yes.
Director Aguilar.
Yes.
Director Perez. Director Maria.
Yes. Motion passed.
All right. Now we're on to the executive management recruitment.
This should be easy. So as this board is aware, the Salton Sea Authority began work on the Conservancy when we identified a problem at North Lake with respect to O&M of completed projects. We were working with Assembly Member Garcia at the time, and actually we can't take credit for the concept because it was actually stolen from work done by the Water Foundation when now Secretary Crowfoot was the executive director, produced a conservancy for the Salton Sea. So we thought the conservancy, in the typical and conventional fashion of a conservancy, would operate and maintain the conservancy assets. Assembly Member Garcia transitioned that work to Senator Padilla, who new on board had more aspirational goals for the conservancy, and a long time was spent hashing out, at least based at that instant, what could and could not get done. And the conservancy was crafted with two primary objectives: to operate and maintain projects completed by the Salton Sea Management Program, and to own the land associated with that. Within the SB 583, there's a provision for the appointment and hiring of an executive officer for the Conservancy. And recently there was a solicitation for an executive officer for the Conservancy. And it was brought to my attention by both board members and members of the public that it seemed that the job description for the executive officer that was being recruited seemed to potentially go beyond the bounds of what the Conservancy was created for. And that's neither good nor bad. What I wanted to do is bring it before this board for discussion, because SB 583, AB 71 all involve coordination and consultation with the state on things like this. So I wanted to hash that out. We do have, and we have had discussions with the state about a concept that would mirror what the CVAG, the arrangement CVAG has with the CVCC, where CVCC owns all of the lands relating to the Coachella Valley Multi-Species Habitat Conservation Plan. And CVAG runs CVCC on behalf of the board of CVCC. It has a separate board. It's just administered. So whether it's that framework or some other concept, the twofold objective is to make sure there's no duplication and to ensure that there's maximum efficiency in an environment where there's limited resources. So there is an outline in your paper that kind of discusses both the history and the direction. And I welcome the board's guidance in this regard. And I think that what should happen is, based on the board's guidance, we should continue the conversation with CNRA and make sure that perhaps as part of the term sheet or otherwise, we further clarify some of these potentially conflicting questions.
Board member thoughts?
I mean, I have the position description pulled up here for the executive officers. So to the extent, anyone feels like there's some language in here that's beyond the scope of what an executive officer for the Conservancy would do, feel free to reach out to me. I think this is, the position description speaks to what's required of, what we're going to need from someone to manage, not only the Conservancy's 22-member board, but also the staff who are going to be required to carry out the O&M of these, in some cases, projects that are worth like $500 million. So there's a lot of expertise and dynamism that we're hoping for in our candidate pool. And so I would just say for members of the authority who want to be helpful and collaborative to support the Salton Sea Conservancy, please make sure to distribute the job posting across your networks and try to find some really exceptional candidates so that there's a really diverse and strong applicant pool, so that the Conservancy can continue to advance its charge to operate and maintain our state projects.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Just very quickly, I'll nominate Joe Shea only because we don't know how long he'll be in this position. I mean, obviously, we're going to have a new governor.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's the case, hey, Joe Shea would be great. Just putting it
On
out
the
there.
spot.
Yeah, I'm just putting it out there just in case.
Yeah.
I suspect he's getting a lot of job offers.
I mean, the only other, much appreciated, Supervisor. I guess the only other thing I would say is we don't have an executive officer, right? And General Manager O'Dowd, I'm just reflecting on our relationship, right? I would say we have a very strong and positive working relationship, and that's not because it exists somewhere in some policy doctrine about how we're supposed to communicate with one another, right? We have a strong relationship because we both care about helping the Salton Sea and working towards implementation. And so I think that sort of organic partnership is going to come alive once there is an executive officer at the Conservancy. And so, I would just, again, encourage folks to, give this Conservancy some time to get staffed and stood up. And I really think that at that point, there's going to be, folks who are bringing in a wealth of expertise and background, and there are going to be opportunities for partnerships to happen organically. And again, I would just say, really ask yourself, are you interested in operating and maintaining state projects? And if the and if the answer is no, then I don't think there's duplication, right? And I think that's where there's just going to be time though to continue that collaboration once these bodies are stood up. As I think is mentioned in the board packet, the president of the authority has a seat on the conservancy, so there is some coordination that's inherently built in. And I think again, once there are more staff and once there's more dialogue between these two bodies, again, I think a lot of the partnership that's discussed here is going to happen organically. So, and that's all I'll say on that. Thank you.
If I could, I think that's all as between authority staff and CNRA staff and DWR staff. That's exactly right. Where I am most concerned is public perception and public expectations as to what it can and can't do, what it should and should not do, because a successful conservancy is good for everybody. And the CVAG concept was developed with a notion that DWR is probably going to be heavily involved for an extended period of time anyway, that they're probably going to be contractors involved doing a lot of the work. So if there is administrative duplication there and we are dealing with limited resources, then at least it was worth the discussion and consideration to explore that that strategy for dealing with it. And I don't think there certainly was never any intention of a decision being made today. It was just wanting to make sure that in a public forum, we recognize that there is the risk, especially with the now approval of the framework, that there will be confusion of responsibilities. The more we can clarify that, the more we can silo that, the more we can get the best people doing the job for the least cost for the public, which I think is everybody's objective.
Can I just, if I can just add a couple of words, just to reinforce what Patrick is saying, and this is not meant to be critical, Joe, just so you understand that, but I was reading where the secretary has called for a symposium of some sort on Lake Tahoe, Salton Sea, and one other body of water. I can't remember.
Clear Lake.
Clear Lake, sorry, thank you. And the executive director of the authority wasn't asked to sit on the panel. And I found that to be odd. I do see that there was a member of the Conservancy Board, I believe, the Allianz rep is going to be there. But to me, that just reinforced in my head that we're going to be lost in the dust. And my concern isn't really with you, Joe, because I think you've been really a major asset to our efforts here, but it's what happens later on. So I just use that as an illustration of what we could be up against. So just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? Since you're not looking for any action today, it's just a discussion item. All right.
Successful implementation of the conservancy.
That is on the record, and I'll make sure to direct staff to do that.
And the minutes will so reflect.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have the project-related activities. Feasibility study.
So we talked a little bit about this in some of the discussion with the framework, and I don't think we need to, because this is the third monthly meeting that we've had, and the feasibility study will never move faster than quarterly updates. So, but what I did want to point out is the kinds of things that we're talking about are important to the successful implementation of the feasibility study. It's going to be across multiple administrations, and we're going to deal with multiple priorities and multiple objectives. This current administration has bent the program a bit, and we're trying to make sure that it stays on track. Our goal, our hope, our expectation is that what we have secured from Congress and what we have developed over the course of the last 4 years proves to be a durable and sustainable federal, state, and local partnership that addresses the impacts that are occurring at the Salton Sea both as a result of its historic use and future measures that would further impact the sea. I think we're moving in the right direction, but I think that we need to continue. And I think the framework will further help with that. I think the MOU will help with that. But other than that, that's really all I have to report.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the North Lake pilot demonstration.
And I would mention briefly, although I suspect Nick will talk about it a bit more. I'm going to pause and let Nick, if you're available and want to jump online and talk about the state funding for Prop 68. See there? Sorry. He didn't know I was going to do that to him. There's Glenn.
Hi, good morning, Mr. President, board members. Maybe I can pinch hit for Nick. Glenn Farrell, on behalf of the Crew Strategies team here in Sacramento. Yeah, the state budget activities related to the Prop 68 allocation, the legislature approved its state budget on June 29th. The governor signed it shortly after, went into effect on July 1st for the new fiscal year. And that budget that the legislature and the governor approved did include a $16.2 million appropriation from Proposition 68 to the Department of Water Resources for capital outlay associated with the North Lake project. And it also included a $600,000 appropriation from Prop 68 to the California Natural Resources Agency to execute an agreement with the Salton Sea Authority to facilitate the authority's continued involvement in project delivery. So those are approved, and that budget package is now in place and implemented. And so the next step now would be to actively engage with CNRA to memorialize the agreement provided for in the state budget and execute the appropriations mechanisms.
And I specifically asked the cruise team, and I have discussed with Assistant Secretary Shea the benefit in ensuring that those resources have maximum flexibility so that we can direct them so that they can achieve the maximum benefit. I think that our prior experience was other than. We had, very rigorous, as I suspect many state agreements have, but the more we can have flexibility in how we use that money to implement the Greater North Lake project and address and integrate it into the community needs, I think the better off we will all be. And I'm confident that working together, we can accomplish that.
All right, any other comments from the board on the Prop 68? All right, then we will move on to Desert Shores, update on legal for the site control.
And the only thing I would report is we did hire a law firm to craft an easement agreement, and that work is underway and should be completed, if not by the end of this week, early next week.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions about the site control? See none, we'll move on to reports. First up is federal.
Ms. Moore is not with us today because of a family situation. She wanted me to point out that she has had near perfect attendance and apologizes for her absence.
All right, if we have nothing from Ms. Moore, then we have Bureau of Reclamation.
And Mr. King has already made his presence known.
So next we have state advocacy. Crew strategies. Do we have anything else, Glenn, besides what you reported on Prop 68?
Just that was the spoiler alert. That was the big part of the news, I guess, for the update today. I guess the only other relevant piece to share and just informational is that the legislature is on its summer recess now. They're about halfway through it. They reconvene on August 3rd. And that is a sprint to the finish line. August 31st is the conclusion of the 2-year legislative session. So when you look at the calendar, there's actually only 21 working days remaining in the legislative session, and legislature has a ton of work to do in those 21 days. They have hundreds of policy bills moving through the process, but really importantly, and things that we'll be focused on and paying close attention to are the remaining budget actions, outstanding budget actions that are still out there for August. I referenced the fact that the legislature and the governor approved the state budget to keep the lights on and to move California into its next fiscal year. But notably, they did punt on some big ticket issues in the resources space. Proposition 4 allocations That remains unaddressed at this point. And so that will be an outstanding issue that the legislature will grapple with in August. You may recall last year out of there was a substantial chunk of Proposition 4 allocated last year. The administration is proposing another chunk of funding to be allocated this year as well. And among those allocations are remaining funding for Salton Sea Management Program, some additional funding for the Salton Sea Conservancy. So those are still remain outstanding in August, as well as a variety of other Proposition 4 allocations relating to issues that others may be interested in: dam safety, drinking water quality, et cetera. The other issue that's still outstanding in August is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund as part of the Cap and Invest program. There remains a lot of uncertainty regarding the Cap and Invest program, particularly with respect to the anticipated annual auction revenue component. There was an estimate that about $4 to $5 billion annually would be generated from auction revenues. That's looking more like $2.5 to $3 billion annually based on recent auction revenue experience. We'll see if they can grow that revenue amount going forward, but it has a substantial impact on the program funding out of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund does have programs tied to air quality, habitat, community protection, those sorts of investments, those sorts of climate investments. And so ensuring that Salton Sea mitigation and community health priorities remain visible within that framework is very important and will be part of the advocacy effort in August associated with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So that kind of concludes wraps up the rest of the state update, Mr. President.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions, comments for Crew Strategies? Thank you for the update. We're going to move on to Mr. Hernandez from CNRA.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. Miguel Hernandez here with the Salton Sea Program. Very short update. It's more of an announcement of an upcoming event that we have going on. Next Wednesday, July 22nd at noon, we have our Secretary Speaker Series. Secretary Crowfoot convenes a group every so often to talk natural resources and other important matters from the state. And in this case, Salton Sea, it's on the table. This speaker series, it's called Concerning California's Iconic Waters, the Future of Lake Tahoe, Salton Sea, and Clear Lake. So I just wanted to extend the invitation to you all and the public to attend this webinar. I will forward the invitation over to Lisa and Mr. Dowd so they can get it out and help us get a good audience for this panel that Secretary Crawford has prepared. That includes Assistant Deputy Secretary Joe Shea, of course, Secretary Crowfoot, Sylvia Paz with Alianza Coachella Valley, and others that will be part of this panel. So again, that's Wednesday, July 22nd at noon. And that's all I have. Thank you all.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hernandez?
I have some project updates if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, AB 109 passed. So I had a kickoff meeting with our internal admin team, and we'll start folding General Manager O'Dowd into those conversations. I've emphasized the importance of needing to keep the funding as flexible as possible. I will say that bond funding is typically very, very, very rigid, but to the extent our folks can identify flexibility, that's what they're there for. So we'll try our best. The North Lake Wetlands and North Lake Pilot projects, that effort continues. Our fantastic engineer, Steve Mitchell, has been meeting with land and water owners to try to talk a little bit more about the project and build that out. I think having the ad hoc committees, the projects coming back with Director Aguilar chairing that committee is a great next step for hopefully maybe talking about this a little bit more. I know our project teams are supposed to meet in the coming week, so we got to do more to identify water sources and understand, what the water budget is, because then we'll know what's achievable. So I think that's really exciting. Cane Spring is our next really big project. It sits adjacent to the species conservation habitat. It's about a $80 to $90 million project funded by the climate bond. And we've had some really successful working sessions over the course of the summer, led by Yvonne, Melinda, and Vivian. We're getting closer to putting out the contracts so that we can have construction firms bidding on that. Hopefully towards the end of certainly by the end of this year. We're not quite sure when, but that's a really, really big milestone because we're saying, we're not just building SCH, we're also doing another large scale project directly adjacent to it that's going to achieve a lot of benefits. And then we're really, really pressing hard to try to do another groundbreaking on the SCH ponds later this year. So we'll be putting more water into a new network of ponds. So that's really exciting. And then as Glenn mentioned, we've got our eyes on the Prop 4 negotiations later this year, because that's where our $30 million proposal for additional Salton Sea projects is still being discussed. And we really want to make sure that we get that funding in tow so that we can go out to bid for these projects with even more funding so that hopefully we can build them even bigger. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so next on the agenda, we have the state recreation, which is no report. So then we have locals. We have the Salton Sea Action Committee, Mr. Pace.
Yes, I'm here. So the news, the Salton Sea Summit that's been held every 2 years will be this year in October. October 16th and 17th, led by UCR with their research efforts, and Mike Cohen as a co-sponsor. So that will be coming up in August, and that's everything I've got to say for this meeting.
August or October?
The meeting is in October 16th and 17th.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Pace. Next up, we have Executive Director report and comments. Patrick O'Dowd.
Mr. President, I think I've spoken enough today, and I will
What?
cede my time to the chair.
All right. Well, that's on the record. Next thing we have is items for next meeting. One thing we talked about was the list of people for the ad hoc committee to figure out who you plan on reaching out to so we can start that conversation and maybe come up with a framework of a budget. And then we can have that update at the next meeting. What else do we have that we want to discuss at the next meeting?
It's in September.
Listen, because if not, Patrick will figure out an agenda and we'll just run with it. All right, then it sounds like, yeah, just throw some items on there. We'll be fine. Oh no, we're done. We're adjourned.
Thank you so